Hey, what's going on Instagram? Andriki Namaskaram. My name is Prithvi Ganesh Mavuri, and I am your host for Masalainurdosa Presents Telugu's. This is going to be a really exciting venture. I am a little nervous, but a hell of a lot more excited. Telugu's is going to be a platform for Telugu Americans to share their stories about their identity and how they navigated and how they navigate the diaspora space. My goal and purpose for this is to put out as many stories as I possibly can. People from all walks of life, a whole age range, and who are in all different sort of career fields. And as long as they share their stories and their relationship with their identity, and if they are able to connect with at least one person in each episode, I would have succeeded. And so I'm really excited. This is our first episode, and we're gonna try this out, see how it goes. But first of all, I am really stoked to have a really special guest with me today. One of my oldest friends, one of my dearest friends that I've known since 2007, Mr. Vikram Eagam, based out of Chicago. And Vikram, thank you so much for doing this with me, dude.
Yeah, no, thanks for asking me. I'm happy to be
Yeah.
the guinea pig for the first episode. If it's as you said.
Absolutely, man. We have been talking about this for so many years. For a little bit of background about Vikram and I met Vikram in 2007 in my freshman year in college. Yes, we are old, but he was my freshman year floor mate, and then my roommate, and then continued to be one of my best friends. And we shared so many moments. He's one of the first Telugu guys that I met in undergrad, and we shared so many memories, such as watching Chiruta Ramcharan, first Telugu movie in my freshman year dorm room, and you coming over to my house and watching some old Telugu movies with me, and us just kind of sharing our experience with our relationship with being Telugu. But that's enough from me. Let me hand it over to Vikram Eagam here. Vikram, just tell us a little bit about yourself. Take it away, man.
Yeah, hey guys, thanks Prit. Like Prit said, it's a friendship for a long time and forever forward. And thinking about those moments like you just mentioned, watching these like Telugu movies, we even went out to like the theater out in Boston with your dad and once, and it was just like all these type of things. Like you grow up a certain way, you get used to certain things, you don't know how it's going to be later on, so it's nice to have that connection with friends. And then this is what we've been able to, as Prithvi said, we've been talking about this for a long time. So it's nice that it's coming to fruition, especially
Absolutely.
in today's world where identity is such a huge factor. I think it's really important to look within sometimes and just kind of remember how we felt, what we went through, and to be able to push that to our forward of our actions today, because that's the examples that we'll be setting and that movement with purpose that we have. So it's
Wow.
really nice to talk about this.
That's beautifully said, man. Beautifully said.
So a little bit about me. I was born in Jersey, lived mostly on the East Coast.
Yeah.
I'm actually the youngest of six kids. I have five older sisters.
Wow.
We range from multiple age ranges. I have 10 nieces and nephews. So we come from a big family, which is a very common story for a lot of people when they think about their parents. And so many times I hear, oh yeah, my dad's one of 10, my dad's one of six, my mom's one of seven. So we have that. But growing up with that, especially being raised in this country, creates its own set of experiences. And when I compare that to my friends and some of them experiences that they went to, it's sometimes very different. But like I mentioned, born in Jersey, grew up mostly in Southern Connecticut,
Yeah.
and before going to college in Boston with Prithvi over here in Boston University. Since then, I'm moved around a little bit. I've worked in Boston at Mass Gen. Then I worked in healthcare consulting, and it still do actually. So I lived in Seattle for a bit, and now currently I'm in Chicago.
Awesome.
So bit of a journey, but happy to be on this to just talk about our experiences of
That's
being
awesome.
Telugu and what that means.
Yeah, and just my perception of Vikram here, I think like you come from a large household. You have, six, your six kids, five older sisters. I mean, that's a hell of a dynamic right there. But what was it like growing, like being born in the States and knowing what I know about your family and your dynamic? You guys are that Telugu identity and Telugu-ness, if you will, was pretty strong in your household. What was that like growing up?
Yeah. So it's a little bit of a interesting story. Like my dad originally came here in 1974. So
Hmm.
that's a long, long time ago. Like
Right.
uh, the first set of numbers we really see of the Indian generations coming over. Um, I was born about 15 years after that,
Yeah.
but he started his life here, and my sisters were here, my mom was here. A short story about his assimilation. He had come here at a time where communication back home wasn't very, very frequent, and he actually spent the first few years here by himself until
Wow.
he was waiting to bring my mom and his kids that he already had. Separate story for a different day, but he wanted to bring them over. So he came here first to create that base for them, when that platform to bring them over, and he totally assimilated. He used to tell me about his first Ford car that he used to drive, the giant Cadillac he used to be going through NYC, grabbing a slice of pizza on his like in between catching buses. The whole immigrant came to America with $7 in my pocket story.
Right.
But my mom kind of gave me the other side of that because then he spent a few years here, came back to India to bring his wife and kids over,
Hmm.
and my mom had told me everyone tried to make fun of him because he forgot how to speak Telugu.
Mm.
He would speak English so fluently and so fast because he just went 5 years without talking Telugu with anybody
Right.
and not really doing the stuff that he grew up with. And growing up in 50s and 60s India, it was like doing pujas every day, studying like, praying and all that. Then you
Right.
come here and we don't really do that. Like, especially back then, there's no Indian stores to buy your food or anything.
Right.
So we already had this start of like merging these two cultures.
Hmm.
So my mom, he picked up my mom, my sisters came back here, my two more sisters were born, and he started his life in this country.
Hmm.
So starting it that way, when I was born, being rightly born to this huge family, and it wasn't
Hmm.
just that. We had friends who were always visiting us from what I hear. This was a long time ago, but that's what we did back then. When people came, you go to a new place, you stay with friends for a little bit until you figure your own
Right.
footing sometimes, and just to get the handles, you make your network. So it's like friends, some family. So during this process, I've learned that there's a lot of Telugu people around me in my house all the time.
Hmm.
So I actually learned Telugu first.
Wow.
Uh, so that actually caused me a lot of problems in school because
Okay.
I found a lot of old reports that I realize now that I was in ESL.
Oh, wow.
So,
Okay.
so I found stuff from preschool and kindergarten, and they're like, I was reading this report, and it was Vikram doesn't listen. Doesn't pay attention in class. He never sits down when he's asked to.
Yeah.
And I think they gave me some whatever New Jersey State exams, and I ranked in the bottom 7%.
Yeah.
And they thought I was going to be held back a year.
Wow. Okay.
And it was so interesting. I mean, I didn't know what that meant. And to my parents' credit, they never really worried about all that stuff. They're like, yeah, bad report card, whatever.
Good for
Uh,
you.
yeah, luckily, I got lucky in that sense. But it's funny because 2 years later, I found the same school report card saying things like, whatever, the normal report card you'd expect, fine grades, fine behavior, whatever. And it just made me realize that having that impact of having a huge Telugu family was there, but
Uh-huh.
that how I would normally speak.
Yeah.
And a lot of people go through that, and that's one decision point that people have to make. I know our friend Ashish used to tell us he learned Telugu first, but then his parents were kind of afraid what that means from an academic standpoint. I
Right.
know other people who are like, yeah, my parents used to make me watch cartoons and TV all the time as a kid, so I
Mm-hmm.
learned to speak English more.
Right.
I didn't really have that force. We always had my like grandma around and things like that, and I always
Got it.
in the house it was always English with dad, Telugu with mom,
Right.
and Telugu within the family. So I got lucky in a way of at least retaining the language,
Mm-hmm.
and because of the experiences around me and being able to continue it forward. And I
Yeah.
was always kind of encouraged to keep talking like that.
Okay.
Um, but there's always the humbling experiences to India that really kind of make your break your experiences with staying in that Telugu-ness.
Interesting. Okay. So just to sort of recap, your dad was ahead of his time, and he did the assimilation that we're experiencing in the 70s, and then your mom brought in that Telugu-ness, and then yeah, that is awesome. So tell me a little bit about what you were talking about just now. What was it like, you know, you had a pretty big Telugu identity relative to what um the Americans would expect. Like, I mean, clearly they're saying that you're not speaking the language right and everything. But what was it like when you went back home to India, like, and you interacted with your family there? What was that interaction like? Did you get some comments? What was that like?
Yeah, I got some very colorful commentary. Indian people can be very descriptive when they want to be mean. Uh,
Yeah,
and I think that's maybe a Pan-Asian trait. But
yeah.
but I remember being 7 years old. I went once to India when I was three. I don't remember anything.
Hmm.
But when I was seven, that's when you really remember. And it's very, very profound. And back then, India was still going through its industrial revolution and still finding its footing, especially the Telugu states back then, which was just Andhra Pradesh. It
Hmm.
didn't have its progressive chief minister yet. So I remember landing, getting in an ambassador car, and having to
Hmm.
drive 6 hours from the Hyderabad airport to
Right.
Warangal, where all my
Hmm.
family was. And that's from the very second I set foot, I just want to go home immediately.
Wow.
Did not want to stay there. Everything was just like I didn't understand the language properly. Everything felt dirty to me. I
Hmm.
couldn't get like a slice of pizza. It
Yeah.
it's like priorities, you know. So it was like I couldn't do any of these things. I was seven. I was like, what do I do? And I spent 3 months there, and very fortunate I did because that's the last three I had with my maternal grandmother before she passed away.
Right.
But it was hard. Like I had gone, and
Hmm.
I'm this chubby. Let's be real. I was a fat American kid walking in
Hmm.
the streets of India, and the
Hmm.
first thing everyone's commenting on is the fact that I can't speak Telugu well. Like
Hmm.
I thought I had a decent language, like grasp
Hmm.
on the language, but then you quickly find out that everyone doesn't think that. And
Hmm.
some people are like understanding. They're like, "Oh yeah, you're born and raised there. It makes sense." Some people are like, "Oh, why don't you know this language better? You're here visiting, right?"
Hmm.
And then you have the people who always will comment on your weight or just being ignorant or just being a child. Even
Hmm.
people, if they want to be mean, that's a universal trait. Will find ways to be mean. And I
Right.
think in people in India, a lot of people who want to have that feeling of trying to escape and get out there who couldn't, sometimes
Hmm.
lash out. Some people supportive. It's a very
Sure.
different culture now, but back
Hmm.
then it was kind of tough.
So did you feel whatever connection you felt with Telugu when you were in the States, when you went to India, did you feel like kind of put off? Like, okay, like I don't think I am Telugu. Like,
I quickly learned that I wasn't. I quickly learned that I wasn't as many times in my life. I quickly realized I'm not what I thought I was, and in terms of identity, and that was
hmm.
probably the earliest ones.
Okay.
And it was a very much so like you gotta adapt. I mean, my
So what was
dad,
your response? What was 7-year-old, what was 12, 13-year-old Vikram's response to these people sort of making these comments or making you feel as though that you're not Telugu, even though
my
you
thing
are?
was, you're not gonna tell me how Telugu I am or not. Like maybe not that formed that eloquently in my head back then, but I was
Yeah.
just kind of mad to be honest. I was like, no, I'm here. there's no reason I can't get better at this. Um, Luckily, it was a decent platform to get started off on, and it was just, and with speaking Telugu in the family, I still understood the language, I just couldn't speak it well. So then I just talked. I mean, that's all I could do is talk in Telugu, and
Mm,
it's going to get better. But
mm,
understanding the movies that I'm watching, trying to be more attentive to the words that are being said. I think another reason why later in life I realized my Telugu is different from other Telugu people too is I
mm.
didn't realize being from a town called Warangal in Telangana is a different dialect of Telugu than what you may have spoken in East Godavari or other people in Andhra speak, or even Hyderabadi Telugu. So there's all
Absolutely.
these different things, but I'm used to that. So I used to pick up all the words that I didn't know before. My grandpa
Sure.
used to also be like kuko, kuko,
Mm,
and that just means sit. It's
mm.
kucho. Kucho is probably the proper way to say it, but
Right.
it's just finding this dialect thing. It's saying words like the words that people, as I found out, don't even use in Hyderabad anymore. All these
Wow.
like uh, words that I learned with, I was trying to pay an extra ear, extra attention to them, to
Mm,
being like, I want to know what this means.
mm. Did you
Because if I
have,
don't, someone's gonna make fun of me.
mm, true. Did you have somebody in India who kind of understood your quote unquote plight per se that made you feel like a little bit more comfortable with what you were going through?
No, definitely not at that age.
Oh
Like,
man.
I think at that point in our family, we were the only ones that were in America, except some of my cousins and stuff. But at that time when I was in India, I was the only one there. Even my sisters weren't with me.
Okay.
A month and a half after I was there, two of my sisters had come after they finished school and stuff. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I was also dragged out of elementary school, by the way. I didn't finish the last 2.5 months of second grade.
Oh wow.
I was just for 2 months. Yeah, I was just kind of pulled out, and I'm like, I'm not gonna be like, no, I'm like, cool, no homework. Uh,
Oh my God.
I later found out they almost held me back because of that, but no one really paid attention to
Your
that in the beginning.
your parents are awesome. I love what they did with you. But so what? Okay, so we talked a little bit about what it was like in India, but what was that experience like in the States when you did you feel as though that you were among the more quote more Telugu ones in your Telugu community or Desi community?
Yeah, I think having that India experiences really, and then I had another one when I was 13. But yeah, having these experiences did make me feel I was Telugu. But what really made me realize that is, and I don't mean that in a good or bad way. Just yeah, I just realized I was different. Um, Especially after going to India and coming back, we just spent a summer watching Telugu movies, listening to Telugu music
Hmm.
on the old
Hmm.
cassettes and then
Hmm.
CDs and stuff. And that
Sure.
just became what was normal in our household. It wasn't like listening to the radio. It wasn't like going out or doing anything. So if we
Hmm.
weren't, the easiest thing is if you're not exposed to other things, you're not going to really pay attention to it. So I actually, probably different from a lot of people, ended up growing in a Telugu bubble in a way.
Mm.
That
Okay.
became all my entertainment. All my entertainment, apart from the few TV shows I watched that were like normal, it was watching a lot of Telugu movies, listening to Telugu music. I
Mm.
feel like I caught up on all the music I missed out in middle school and high school and college. Right?
Gotcha.
But it created a false sense of Telugu-ness, is what I realized much later, is I ended up being stuck in a bubble.
Mm.
My bubble ended up being this Telugu bubble,
Mm.
and not really realizing the spectrum of what other people experience, whether it's from a Telugu perspective or a South Asian perspective, an immigrant perspective.
Mm.
It, I just kind of focused on my thing. I mean,
Mm.
at that age, I think you're just starting to learn how to relate to other people, discovering the empath within you, and discovering you have this. It might be different. Like I might be Telugu for me, it might be some other background for some other person, but it's
Yeah.
still realizing that this journey we have to come up together.
Mm.
Um, so I did think I was more Telugu to a certain degree. A lot of my other Telugu family friends, their children didn't speak Telugu fluently.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that made me different.
Mm.
At that point, to be perfectly honest, I thought that was a good thing because
Mm.
a lot of older people would praise me because they're like, oh,
Wow.
you're learning this, you're like preserving your language, that's good. I
Hmm.
also realized that people my age thought it was nerdy and kind of, stupid because I looked like a brown noser at that point. Um,
Right.
but I didn't realize that.
Yeah.
I just grew up learning it with being like I got made fun of for not being able to do it well.
Uh,
So now I'm gonna learn to do it as well as I can.
okay.
So that was like an interesting thing to me that later I realized that it's unfortunate in the sense that the language I retained it and became a big part of who I am and my culture.
Right.
But for the other people that it didn't, what does that mean to them is not something I really started thinking about at that age. Maybe when I started going to college, I think I realized that a lot more. But until at
Right.
that age, yeah, it was just taking it all in and thinking I was one thing, and then later realizing that's just a small part of who we are.
So did you and just for our viewers here, like Vikram is going to be a regular guest. He is one of my closest friends. So we're going to be diving into his story a little bit more at a later time. Um, but I just kind of want to jump a little bit ahead. Did you ever kind of feel as though that you struck a balance of between, you know, as I think Nikhil Madhusudan just eloquently put this, neither here nor there experience. How did you ever kind of start? When did you start to strike a balance? Like, when did you start to feel like I have something that is my own identity?
I'm not sure if when I've struck that balance because I think that's something we always try to work on. But I
Definitely.
can for sure tell you the first time I realized I was totally in an imbalance.
Mm.
And that was probably a couple weeks, the first few weeks you met me,
Yeah.
is I had just come off a trip from India. That was like my fourth time to India ever.
Mm.
I had come back, entered into BU,
Yeah.
never seen that many Indian people in my life.
Yeah, man.
Never. I did
Yeah,
not grow up
same
with Indian
here.
people. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a few Indian family friends growing up, but we'd see them like once or twice a year. And
Mm.
the kids were like maybe 6 or 7 of us total.
Mm-hmm.
But never knew there was Indian conferences, Hindu camps, high schools that were like majority Indian that had like dance teams in high schools or whatever. I didn't know
Sure.
that was a thing in college. I was like, dance
Mm-hmm.
what? Uh, so I quickly realized the imbalance of what I was feeling
Mm-hmm.
because a big part of me trying to feel like I was very Telugu also meant that I thought I was very Indian, and
Mm.
very South Asian. That's like
Interesting.
I conflated the two concepts.
Wow. Yes.
And when I did that, and I came to college, and I quickly realized, wow, I am not what is traditionally called uh, Indian or
Mm-hmm.
culturally Indian, because
Mm-hmm.
to be culturally Indian at that point was to have some sort of knowledge of Bollywood, watch those movies, know those songs,
Right.
know that there's different languages, not just North India all speaks Hindi, uh, because we never really talked about that in my household.
Yeah.
Um, I don't know why I went 17 years without realizing that there's 27 official languages in India and largely it's separate. Like the state of Gujarat, state of Punjab, whatever is very different,
Right.
and how that permeates through.
Mm-hmm.
So that's when I quickly realized that I'm not as South Asian as I thought.
Wow.
I can speak a language, but cool, that's great. I mean, if I paid attention in French better, I could speak a Latin language too. But that wasn't the part that should have made me think I was Telugu. That is a gateway, I think, as Nick Hill had mentioned as well
Yeah.
in these comments. But that's just such a small part. It's how we take those experiences and kind of let it shape us who we are, and we use it as a place of strength,
Wow.
either as a place of home to feel like to ground yourself, or to
Mm-hmm.
take those experiences and be like, I can elevate my future experiences because of this,
Yeah.
or just realizing I had this and it was a confusing time and I may have been all in on it, I may have been only somewhat in on it or a little bit in on it,
Yeah.
but I'm happy with what I had and I respect what I had.
Wow.
And that, like I said, I'm not sure when I got that full balance. I'm not sure if I do, but that
Yeah.
imbalance definitely started there because my world just opened up. As someone,
Yeah.
I've been to India 4 times, but again, stayed in one place. I speak Telugu. I have a very Telugu household. That doesn't mean
Yeah.
anything in that big picture. So you start realizing there's a bigger sense to your identity.
Yeah.
And you should always feel comfortable to be able to go out there, do what you want, try new things, and not be held back by feeling like, oh, I shouldn't be doing this because I feel this way. Or
Mm.
feeling like I don't belong because I belong to something else. You can belong to
Mm.
multiple things. Um,
I
a
love
small
that.
side story, I saw one of my friends from Seattle, Varan, I'm not sure
Yeah.
if he's
Yeah. Yeah.
on still on here, but he used to call me Madrasi all the time. He used to piss me off,
Oh.
and he knows it.
Oh, wow.
Um, but
No bueno.
but yeah, but it's still like, I mean, he was trying to say I'm South Indian and everything like that, but and it was fun. It was in good fun for him too. But for me, I'd correct him every single time, and he'd still say it because he knows I push my buttons. But at the same time, he always recognized that I'm a friend, and I actually danced Bhangra with him. He taught me a lot about like some of the history. He'd always speak to me in Punjabi because he would think I understand it. So I had to learn a lot from his hand gestures. But for me, even though he would joke about it, so I know there's like that separation, he was still also
Mm.
inclusive and also being like, yeah, you dance this, go do it. Even now, 5 years after knowing him, if I talk about when I talked about retiring from dancing, he's like, if your knees are good, still keep dancing, keep pushing, keep doing, like whatever, have fun with it. So it's like that of recognizing there's these differences and we come from different places, but
Mhm.
also trying to be open for us as individuals when we want to try something else, not feel
Mhm.
like this part of us is shutting us down.
Right.
So when you talk about balance, I don't think there's ever a full balance. I think it's just coming to terms with your own experiences and you're
Mhm.
getting what you want out of them and you're giving back into it what you think you want to.
Yeah. Definitely. Definitely. That was so well put. Um, I I'm just grinning because I loved everything you have to say there. I think Nikhil also you know talked about language being the gateway to a culture, and you briefly addressed this in your response previously. What is your thought on that? Because I feel like a lot of times, um, I think our elders, the family in India, just people in India in general, just kind of gauge how your Telugu culture, how Telugu you are, based on your fluency in the language. Do you um, what are your thoughts on that?
Well, one, I'm happy to see that that's changing now in India because of the suffusion of American or Western culture and the English language.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Good and bad effects. Like some people
Sure.
feel like their culture is going away. Some people feel like the English is becoming more commonplace, so it's able to get ahead in the world. So
Mm-hmm.
there's different effects there. But yeah, back then it was tough. It's like you're really judged by how well you can speak Telugu.
Mm,
And when you're a kid and you hear that, that either makes or shatters your confidence. It's
100%.
it's really tough. You almost don't want to ever associate with people ever again.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
especially when we're children, adults like now that I'm kind of an adult and still trying to figure out how to be an adult,
Mm-hmm.
I'm realizing that we make a lot of mistakes, and we as children don't know that adults make so many mistakes.
Mm,
Parents, why are they always harder on the first kid than the other kids usually generally? Because they're
mm,
still learning and they're making these mistakes.
mm-hmm.
So when this is happening, language being that gateway and you judging them, it's like judging on any other appearance. It's
Yeah.
like thinking someone's smart for wearing glasses. I think they're being skinny, so that's good. They're fair, so they're pretty. All this shit is just crap. And
Yeah.
it's so hard for them to realize that. And when they comment on that language, it's most of the time really kind of shatters you and makes you
Yeah.
really not want to really pick it up again.
Yeah, I agree. I've definitely felt that. I've been on, I want to say, both sides of the token there, where but I really believe that language is one connection to our heritage, to our culture, but it's not the only one. And if somebody comes to you and is talking to you about Telugu culture, language, history, music, movies in English. Don't be like, why are you talking about this language and heritage in a different language? I mean, if that's what is like you're comfortable in expressing your love for the culture in, let them do that. Don't discourage them.
100%.
And like if they say something like somebody beautifully mentioned coined the term the Lakshmi Manchu effect, and even I'm guilty of this. When I hear her talk in Telugu, you know, everybody's like chuckling, like, you know, she's a Telugu actress. Why is she like having an accent, whatever? And there's some people who were born and brought up here in the circumstances where we are speaking and interacting with people in English 100%, and we're using a language. Don't and so if they have an accent when speaking it, I think, I don't know, for me, if for me, I would gently say like, I think it's pronounced this way, rather than be like, oh, that's really cute, you're trying to do that. Like,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? I hate it when people make these like sort of condescending comments that really will put away anybody that wants to have any sort of relationship with the language and the culture.
100%. And especially like us, I know, I mean, I can say amongst our friends or other people, like we go back home those summers, and home is different from everyone, whether it's a Palaturu for Telugu people, whether it's a Gam for Gujarati people, or Bin for Punjabi people. We all
Yeah,
go back thinking yeah, we're one of you guys, you're our family, we're in our village.
hmm,
Like, I'm gonna try this. You mispronounce one word, you get laughed at for the entire summer.
yeah, yeah,
You try to do something, it's bad. But you also
yeah.
can't say the reverse. It's like, I've always thought about saying, like, well, I speak English fluently. Can you do that? At that time, no one could. So,
Yeah,
like, does that make me any better because I know a language and a half of another one? But
yeah,
I'm still affected by you criticizing me for not knowing the language that I don't speak on an everyday basis with every person that I meet.
yeah, yeah,
So,
100%. But Vikram Garu, this has been awesome. I hope you were able to get some of the things that you wanted to get out. I wanted to give you this. Is there anything else that you wanted to express at this time? Anything else that you wanted to talk on that is important to you? It can be about language. It can be about anything. Um, it's a, it's up to you.
yeah, thank you. I think one thing that I know people know, and I just want to put as a reminder for them, that if you look at any kind of niche, if you look at the Telugu people or Telugu Americans or Indian Americans, South Asian Americans, they see we
Hmm,
fall on a huge spectrum.
hmm,
And there's infinite points on that spectrum. And we might
hmm,
have similar experiences, but how that affects us is different. How we rise from it is different. What that means to us is different. And
hmm,
that is okay. We are always on this journey, and we're always trying to make ourselves better. We're trying to make a sense of who we are. All of our experiences are something to celebrate, to move forward.
yeah,
And I forget that a lot. Sometimes I get down with certain things in life,
yeah,
and we just get bogged down. We're like, if I didn't spend so much time doing this, could I have done this better? Should I focus my effort of doing that?
hmm,
Whatever. None of that really matters. It's
hmm,
just realizing that we have our one life, we have our experiences, we can't change anything, it's just learning from it.
hmm,
But to really move forward, you got to be okay with who you are, and you got to do what you like, and you got to
hmm,
keep moving forward. So take all these experiences. You may fall anywhere in that spectrum. If you're interested in something, dig into it more. If you wish you knew more of the language, learn it. If someone makes fun of you for it, fuck them. Doesn't matter
yeah,
because you're doing better. And
yeah,
just having that mentality and keep pushing forward, because this is what I try to remind myself
yeah.
of when learning something new at work, whatever we try to do.
Mm. That that is so well put. I think we kind of uh, are struggling with Vikram's connection over there, but so many gems, like amazing thoughts from Vikram. I hope you can listen to this, Vikram, at a later time, but I cannot thank you enough for joining me. on this first interview. I am so elated, and I can't wait for more of this. And I on the next episode, we have some really, really cool guests that we're setting up next week. I'm really excited. We're going to have the one and only Yashu Rao. Yashu is a amazing, amazing a Telugu American confidence coach, plus size model. And I cannot wait to talk to her about so many different things. I don't know how I'm going to fit this in 30 minutes or 40 minutes, talking about body image and language and everything. I'm super stoked, but thank you guys so much for supporting us. Thank you so much for interacting with us. This means so much to me. And with your support, I really want to normalize the conversations between identity and Telugu American identity, and yeah, give so many wonderful people out there a voice and a wonderful platform. Chala, thanks. The one thing that I wanted to do with Vikram is I wanted to ask him what his favorite Telugu movie was, his Telugu pick of the day, but I'll do my Telugu pick of the day. I'm a super Telugu movie nerd. I'm a Chiranjeevi fan, die hard, and I will recommend people to watch the movie Challenge by Chiranjeevi. It is on YouTube. I love that movie. It is it really focuses on initiative, willpower, and I think it has a great, beautiful message. So that is my Telugu Prith pick of the day. And thank you so much again for joining us. Vikram, you are the best. Thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Awesome. Bye, guys. Namaste.